Seeing properties like this one behind me, just like the one you guys saw in yesterday's video, is a telltale sign that finally, even this housing slowdown is starting to hit Miami. You see, they listed this house for rent back in September for $12,000 a month. And fast forward to today, the house is listed for rent for $9,500 a month. So they've cut $2,500 off the price and it's still sitting empty. And it's been 5 months. The real question is, for properties like this, how much is someone willing to pay to rent a house like this? That's the real question, because it's been sitting empty for 5 months. And I actually know this house very well, guys. I'll get into a story with it here in a minute for you guys. But this house is basically in original condition, okay? It's a very old house. You can see by looking at the outside, you know, nothing here is really maintained, nothing is new. And how do I know this house so well? Well, I actually listed this house for sale back in 2015. That's right. This was my listing back in 2015 for sale. And back then, I listed the house for sale for $1,359,000, pretty much against my own will. But the problem with it was the sellers, of course. The sellers wanted that price. They thought their house was, you know, paved with gold, just like everybody else these days. Long story short, I had the listing for 6 months and I didn't sell the house. It was the biggest disappointment I ever had in my real estate career. And I would even actually go as far to say that this one listing actually altered the entire future of my real estate career and pushed me into what I'm doing today here, making YouTube videos. Before I get into the video, I figured I'd just give you guys a quick story from the past, because I saw this house for rent. And when I listed this house for sale back then, I had the listing for 6 months. We had a lot of showings. Multiple offers came in, but all well below what the seller wanted for the place. We had listings for $1,150,000, you know, offers around the 1.2 million mark, 1.1 million mark. Seller said no. They refused all these offers, right? And I originally wanted to list the house at $1,150,000. And today, that price difference might not seem like a lot, but back then it was everything. And so it led to me not selling the property, and they listed it again with another agent for $100,000 less. Right after my listing agreement was up, they fired that realtor like a month later, hired somebody else. The new realtor listed it for $1,150,000, right where I originally wanted to list it 7 or 8 months prior to then. And then they sold it for $1.1 million. The reason why that one single listing altered my entire future for real estate is because I used to farm this area. And farming is when you send out postcards every single month, you send out market updates and different things to try to get people to recognize you, so that when they think about selling the house, they think of you first. And I used to spend thousands and thousands of dollars doing that, guys. I went all out on my marketing budget trying to get listings in this area, and this was the first one I got. And I thought, oh my God, if I can just sell this house, not only will it pay for my entire marketing budget, they make it all worth it, but I'll be able to afford to continue marketing to this neighborhood and making sales here. And even if I only make 1 or 2 sales a year in this neighborhood, the home prices are high enough where I'm gonna do fantastic, right? Well, since none of that ever happened, I didn't make the sale. I lost all the money I spent on marketing to the neighborhood and the money that I spent marketing this house. And it was a huge blow, not only to my wallet, but to my ego, to the point where a couple more years went by and I was just like, you know what? I am just so tired of this, you know? Because even though I did have successes after that, it just wasn't going the way that I was hoping it would have. And it pretty much pushed me to the point where I said, I don't want to work as a real estate agent anymore. And that was kind of the genesis for starting this YouTube channel, for those of you who don't know. And the only reason I started with this story today is because I saw this house for rent, and I thought it was a great example of what's happening in the Miami housing market right now, and really everywhere. People are asking crazy numbers, they're not getting it. And because it was that house, it brought up all these old feelings and you know, what happened in the past, and I figured I'd share it with you guys. And I'm pretty sure most of you are happy with my decision of pretty much quitting as a real estate agent to become a full-time YouTuber, because I'll tell you what, guys, not only do I love this far more than I ever loved selling real estate, but it just suits my personality so much better than that ever did. And it is just the right mixture of everything for me. And I just want to say thank you for everyone who watches the channel. I appreciate every single one of you who watches my videos. And to really add to how we just started this and going back to what this video is about, is real estate investors have also gotten the hint with everything that's going on right now with how unaffordable housing is, because you see, it's not just home buyers being affected by this, but real estate investors are also taking a huge step back right now. In the last quarter of 2022, there was about 48,000 homes purchased nationwide by big and small real estate investors. And that might sound like a lot, but guess what? That's down 46% from the year before. So when you put it into that perspective to see exactly how many real estate investors are in the market today compared to a year ago, it is down by basically half, guys. And literally, these investor purchases are now at the lowest number that we've seen since 2017. And a lot of people have been complaining over the past couple of years that investors help prop up these prices, which is absolutely true. But now that they're starting to disappear, as well as just regular home buyers, this is a definite sign that things are completely turning around right now. So a lot of investors are on the sidelines right now, waiting to see where the market goes later this year and waiting to see what the Fed's going to do, because similarly to the stock market that gets hugely affected by these interest rate hikes, real estate investors are affected by this too. And for home buyers, this is actually good news, because I understand that these high interest rates are not good for you as the buyer when it comes to your monthly payment. But recognizing the fact that all of this just leads to more inventory, because more people are renting, because there's less investors, because less people can afford to buy, that inventory buildup that we're going to see throughout the rest of this year is going to greatly increase affordability, because serious home sellers are going to have no choice but to start slashing prices after their homes are sitting on the market for a couple months and they're sitting there with no offers. The question really just becomes, how serious is the seller and how low are they willing to go to get rid of the property? Because like we just saw with this listing in the beginning, you know, this house is at $9,500 a month, which is far too expensive still. I'm sure pretty much everybody who was going to comment about this will say, and I agree, it is. But the question comes to, what is the right price, and how much is a renter out there going to be willing to pay? You know, if you can go and rent a nice house around here for $5,000 a month, and that one's asking $9,500, well, they're in trouble. You know what I mean? And the question becomes, is the owner of this house going to cave in? Are they actually going to rent it at some point for what it's actually worth? That's what's really going to make or break this market this year. And I think that's going to apply to sales, and it's going to apply to rentals. Now, in most areas of the country, I would say that, you know, if you're a landlord and you see a listing for rent, then chances are they're going to be asking a realistic number because they want to get the place rented. But here, seems like they do all kinds of games and shenanigans to try to, you know, prop up the market. And you guys make fun all the time that there's probably some sort of money laundering scam involved, and there probably is. You know, let's face it, this is Miami. South Florida is riddled with criminals and all kinds of scammers trying to pull these things off. Who knows if the person who owns this house is even a serious person that actually wants to rent it, right? Now here's a big joke of the day for you. We're walking by a couple houses here that I'm calling the Twins of Madness. Now this one we're not counting because it didn't have a sign in the yard. These are the two that you guys are gonna see in the video here. And let's start with this first one. They're asking $12,000 a month and 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. But check this out, guys. They bought this house back in November of 2020 for $1.16 million, and they listed it for rent all the way back in January of 2021 for $15,000 a month.
and this property has been empty since then. That's 2 years, folks, for anybody who's counting, and they tried to flip it along the way for $2.8 million, and that hasn't worked out either. So you essentially have a house here that's been empty for basically 3 years. But wait, there's more. The house right next door is also for rent for $10,000 a month. At first, it seems like a better deal because it's also a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, but it's not, because they've been trying to rent this house since November of 2022. They bought it for $1,500,000 and also tried to flip it for $2.5 million. Let's make that quick, easy $1 million, but turns out that no one's making a quick, easy million, and the house is also still empty. And you know what's the biggest joke about all of this? Here's the most recent comp right next door to the $13,000 house, rented in August for $8,000 a month. Way to go, guys.
Now, for any of you channel regulars who might have remembered a story from a couple weeks ago when we talked about Mark's story of his situation up there in Kissimmee. He's the one that sued the insurance company and won the lawsuit and now has much cheaper home insurance. Well, he wrote me again talking about this crazy investor scenario that's happening in his neighborhood, and that's also leading to the new buyers in the area having buyer's remorse, because this is what he says is happening according to a real estate friend that he has over there that specializes in selling investment properties owned by UK out-of-country owners. And they've owned a lot of these properties since the middle 2000s, and this is what they're doing over there. Now, since this area is very close to Disney, these people bought these properties back in the mid 2000s and have been using these houses as short-term rentals for many years, for a while now. And because they've been able to bank so much money using these properties as short-term rentals, what they're doing now in order to cash out at the top of this market is they're actually listing the homes for sale below market value because they can afford to. And it's a guarantee that they're going to sell the property. And when Americans, people that are desperate to buy a house, anybody who's just looking to buy here in Florida, go and see properties like this, they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna put an offer today because this is a great deal. And here's how something like this works and why it's kind of a scam. So let's say this person from the UK bought the house for 250 grand back in 2002, and now today they go ahead and list the property for sale for 530K. They're going to be open to negotiations and, be very flexible on the purchase price with this. They might actually sell a house listed at 530K for 475K, and the American home buyer who's moving from out of state or whatever thinks they're getting the deal of the century. But the caveat to this is they need to buy the house with no inspection and as is. So if there's any trouble with this property, the home buyer's not going to find out about it until well after they own the property. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because we talked about also one of the biggest things that remorseful home buyers are suing over right now are undisclosed defects with the property here in Florida. But what's happening to these home buyers is they're buying these properties and they're owned by out-of-state real estate investors from the UK, right? And so the person from the UK sells the property as is, the home buyer thinks they got the deal of the century, and then they start finding all kinds of things wrong with it later on that are going to cost a fortune to repair. But here's the thing, the seller lives out of the country. So if you think you're going to sue and you're going to be able to get something out of this, it's not going to happen because the seller's long gone. And so really the lesson to be learned from this story and the real cautionary tale here is if you're going to be buying any property whatsoever, you should definitely look at who the seller of the property is. And this is all public information. You can check the tax roll yourself, find out, does a corporation own this house? Is it in the name of an individual? And ask the listing agent of the house, does the owner of this house live here? Are they from the United States? What's the story with this? And try to get some information about it, because if you find one of these deals that seems to be too good to be true, then it probably is, and something's probably going to come back to bite you later on. And ever since Mark told me this story, I just had to share it with you guys because it's definitely one of those things to look out for. And even though this story is specific to Central Florida, this can happen anywhere, guys. If you are buying a house from a corporation or an LLC or an owner that lives outside the country, this can happen to you. And one easy way to prevent this whole thing is to never agree to buy the home with no inspection, okay? That's going to just be the final nail in your coffin if you agree to this, because not only does that scream desperation, but you're also waiving your rights later on and making it much harder to actually win some sort of lawsuit if there is any problem. That's the number one thing that people need to do right now in 2023. If you're going to be buying, don't be waiving your inspections, do not waive your appraisals, and if you're going to use an as-is contract, make sure that you do all of your due diligence within your inspection period when you can cancel the contract for whatever reason you please. That way, you know by the time that that inspection period is over, you've done everything you can to vet this house and realize that, yeah, I should be buying this property. Now, yesterday we also talked about how there's a lot of real estate agents quitting right now and looking to go back to their old jobs or get different jobs because the market is at a huge standstill right now. And this other story is just another one that just resonates with me personally. And sorry if you guys don't enjoy these personal anecdotes in the videos, but I know some of you do. This one definitely hit home with me as well, because this story is about real estate agents who are resorting more to doing rentals now than ever before, because rental inventory is going up much faster than the for sale inventory. And you know, sometimes even you guys reach out to me and ask me, hey Michael, can you refer me to a real estate agent that can help me with a rental? And unfortunately, I always have to say no, guys, because my real estate partnership that I have with my referral company, they'll only work with sales, because the problem is commissions on rentals are so much lower than selling a property that a lot of real estate agents just don't want to deal with it. And by the way, thank you to my channel member Nick for sending me this story. And if you guys ever need a real estate agent, so many of you reach out to me in the comments or send me an email, I always have a link in the description for a real estate agent referral. If you need an agent anywhere in the United States, I can hook you up with somebody right now today. My team is extremely fast at doing this, so if you ever need an agent to buy or to sell, I have a link for that in the description below, so don't hesitate to use it. This is a free service to you guys, just to thank you for being a viewer here and watching my channel. So this story goes a little something like this. You have a lot of landlords out there that picked up cheap property during this housing market run-up and have a very low interest rate. So their incentive to sell these properties is practically nil, especially since they're getting decent returns on these investments right now. And a lot of people might say, well, that's not fair because it keeps so much inventory off the market for all the home buyers that want to buy, right? Well, depends on how you look at it, guys, because think about it like this. On the surface, this might sound like a bad thing because it lowers inventory for sale. But in fact, it raises the amount of rental inventory out there, which does a few things for the housing market. So think of it like this. With more rentals available, it makes rent prices cheaper, and rent prices have already been on the downfall this year. So if you are out there trying to determine whether to buy or to rent, and you're seeing rentals for similar properties for sale that are costing $400 or $500 a month less to rent than it would to buy that same property, then to me, renting right now is a no-brainer since prices for everything are coming down. But it gets better than that, because here's the other part of this equation. Because you have more and more rentals coming on the market, that pushes rental prices down. It also affects for sale inventory, because as you have more people choosing to rent instead of buy, what this does is it allows more for sale inventory to build up on the market, which eventually causes home sellers to slash prices, because the more inventory builds up, the more competition that home sellers are in competition with amongst themselves. So this is a win-win for anybody who is either looking to buy or to rent. This is going to make rent prices go down, and in effect, in the long run, will also make home sale prices come down as well. And coming back to how this reminds me of my own personal endeavors in real estate is because it's to the point now where a lot of Redfin real estate agents that would never touch a rental client in the past are now jumping all over this for a couple reasons. One, it's where the opportunity is right now. If you want to remain in the business, if you want to remain working for yourself, you're kind of in a situation where you have no choice but to start doing rentals if you want to make money and you want to retain your existing clients. Because think of all the people that these agents sold properties to over the past couple years, and now they want to turn them into rentals. You're at a crossroads with your client. Do I let them go and use a different real estate agent because I don't want to do rentals, I'm too good for that? Or do I swallow my pride and do the rental for them in the best interest of keeping the client? And the second option is what I did throughout my entire real estate career. In fact, my bread and butter was rentals. I've made far more rentals than I did sales throughout my career. You know, I would say I probably did 10 rentals for every sale that I did. So the ratio for rentals to sales was always very high for me. Rentals can be quite lucrative because you have somebody that needs a place, or you get a rental listing, and if the place is priced right or you have a motivated tenant, you can make a deal in a matter of a few days and get paid within 2 to 3 weeks just from the beginning to the end of starting a process with somebody. So rentals can be very lucrative, and you have to be doing them in volume because the commissions are lower than sales. But if you're in an expensive city like Miami here, and you know, rental prices now on average are $3,000 a month and up, you know, you make 2 or 3 of those, it's like making a sale. So it can really add up. And I think that this housing market right now and the conditions that are being set forth in it are going to really bring out the true professionals in real estate and weed out all the losers. Because if you have agents that are still willing to rent out your properties that they sold to you, and you know, still willing to do what it takes to be a good real estate agent, then that's going to be a far cry from somebody that says, oh no, I don't do rentals, you know, I only do blah blah blah, or you know, who's just flat out quitting right now because they just can't hack it. So you're really going to see this housing downturn weed out all the unprofessional people that shouldn't be in the business to begin with. The ones who are left over at the end are going to be the real people that you should have been working with all along. And you know, the other thing is, so many people were jumping up and down and celebrating how inflation was going down, right? And then those people just got knocked off their pedestal this week with the inflation report going back up, which they weren't expecting, that's for sure. And the same exact thing is true for all the people who were completely celebrating how mortgage rates were going down, and you know, buyers are returning to the market, and the housing market is bottomed. It's all going to be uphill from here. Well, guess what, guys? Mortgage demand just dropped again because interest rates are going back up. The mortgage application volume fell 7.7% last week because rates jumped back up to 6.4% when they were about 6.1% a week ago. And this is going to be the same thing you're going to probably see throughout the year. You're going to see interest rates fluctuate. It's not going to remain steady, that's for sure. And anytime it just goes down a little bit, you're going to see all the desperate people who think they're going to save a few dollars jump back in there and try to apply for a mortgage and, you know, pay near record high level prices for the homes that are for sale, which is stupid and it's ridiculous. But hey, buying real estate seems to be completely irrational behavior when it comes to human beings, and it seems to be just the world that we live in. So they even were talking about in here how some real estate agents were jumping up and down as well because people were coming back to their open houses for a few weeks there ever since mortgage rates kept going down for a few weeks in a row, and they thought, oh, this is it, this is great, you know, the whole thing's going to recover, and well, their bubble's going to get burst once again. Obviously, we made it right back to this house, and you guys can just thank this house and this deal for watching this video right now, which I'm so happy that this is happening and this is the new reality. So thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. And if you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.